Niddah Daf Nun Vav. We're continuing with the sugya of different liquids and moisture that create tuma. It says in the pasuk, "Zoivay tomei hu, v'zois tia tumasa." So the Gemara darshans from the word v'zois that comes to include meiraglaim, urine. Why dafka urine? Because it's very similar to spit. It has the same characteristics where it's misasif, it gathers and then it comes out. And it also has the characteristic that if it doesn't come out, it gets reabsorbed in the body. Whereas, for instance, the milk of a nursing woman, it gathers, but it doesn't have the characteristic that it gets reabsorbed by the body. Now, we don't learn from ziva itself. Ziva gathers, but it doesn't get reabsorbed in the body, yet it has the power to be metama. The answer is because it has the power to be metama the person himself before the person touches it. Whereas all the other liquids, they are not metama the person, only after they come out and you touch it do you become tummy. We learned in the Mishnah that a sheretz, which is dry, a dead sheretz, which dried up, is not tummy. Says Rish Lakish, depends. If the sheretz is complete and it has its entire skeleton, then it is metame, even though it is dry. And the same exact halacha applies to a sheretz which is burnt. The Gemara says it's similar to zevuge, which Rashi says a tzav. Now a tzav in Hebrew is a turtle, but we translate tzav as a toad. A toad is a sheretz. If it's completely dry, but it's completely whole, it is metame. And therefore we could understand the contradiction, the seeming contradiction in the Torah, which says in the Torah on one hand, bohem, and on the other hand it says mayhem. Bohem would mean the entire sheretz, and mayhem, part of them. Part of them is only tamei when it's moist, bohem, the entire sheretz, when it's yavesh. How do we know different liquids are metame when they are moist? Ziva, it says ror, when it flows. Kichai, niyai, veroikai, the phlegm and spit, it says in the pasuk, v'chi yoroik hazav, that everything has to be similar to spit. Sheretz, how do you know that if it's moist, it's metame? Because it says, anegeh bohem b'moisam, like at the time when they died, they were still moist. The same thing by Nevela, it says, v'chiyamos, as it dies, it's still moist. Shichvazer has to be ra'ui lahazriya, and that's only when it's moist. It says in the Mishnah that if it's dry, but you could introduce liquid to it, and through that it becomes moist, then it is tamei. What's the shear? You leave it in lukewarm water for 24 hours. There's a machlokes whether the water needs to remain lukewarm throughout the 24 hours or not. Yehuda ben Akaisa says you just have to introduce whatever it is to the liquid when it's lukewarm, and later on it could cool off. Rav Shimon Gamliel says no, the entire 24 hours it must be lukewarm. It comes out that Yehuda ben Akaisa is actually mekel because he says that it doesn't become tamei and it's considered yavesh, which is not metama. Even though Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah says that human flesh that becomes dried out is not tamei, it's not metama like tumas meis b'kezayis, yet he's masking that will be metama like rekev, like corpse dust, which is a ladleful, 2 handfuls of this dust would be metama. It says in the Mishnah that a kesem, if a woman finds a stain on her clothing and she doesn't know when it occurred, she goes back to the last time she did a bedika to the clothing or the last time she cleaned the clothing. The same thing would apply if you find a sheretz in a mavoy, in an alleyway, which is considered a reshus hayachid, and you don't know if your taharis touched the sheretz, you go back to the last time you did a bedika in the alleyway or the last time you swept the alleyway. If the sheretz is whole or a stain, it's metama lach v'yavesh, moist and dry. The Gemara comes out of the maskana that when a person sweeps his mavui, or when a woman cleans her clothing, there's a chazaka that they check the clothing, they check the mavui, and therefore anything that we have in the mavui before that cleaning, before that checking, is tahar. Therefore, if you find in the mavui a sheretz in a guma, in a pit, since you have a chazaka that you check the mavui, therefore it wasn't there beforehand. The same thing if you find a ketem at the end of the clothing, we have a chazaka that it was checked. But if a person says mafurish, I did not check the mavui, I did not check the clothing, then there's no chazaka. So what happens if you laundered your clothing and you know for a fact you didn't check to see if there's any ksama? So there's a three-way machlokes. According to Rameir, whatever touched this beged before cleaning the beged is tameh. According to Rav Acha, there's a trick. You go ahead and you clean the beged again, and you see if the stain comes off. If the stain comes off, now you know the stain happened after the last time you cleaned it. And if it doesn't come off, then perhaps it was there beforehand. According to Rebbe, if the stain penetrated into the beged, then you know that it was there from before the laundering, because the laundry caused it to penetrate. But if it's like a thick layer over the clothing, then you know what happened afterwards. Says the Mishnah, according to Reb Shimon, if the sheretz is dry, then you have to go all the way back to the last time you cleaned, you checked the mabum. But what if the sheretz is moist? You could tell by the moisture how long it was dead. Forensic scientists could see, is it there for 2 days, 3 days? It can't be there for a week, otherwise it would be hard like a rock. So therefore, there's a limit at how much you have to go back. That only applies to sheretz, but not to dam. Dam, if you have moist dam, you don't say, well, it can't be here for 3 days, otherwise it would harden, because perhaps you introduced water to it. And that would cause the moisture. Masha'inka by sheretz, if you add water, it will crumble. It says the Mishnah that a kesem that comes from a place called Rekem is completely tar, because we assume since Rekem is a Goyish city, then it's tar. Rabbi Yehuda says it's tameh because the people in Rekem are Gerim who went off and they don't know how to deal with their ksamim. There's a machlokes amoraim in Rabbi Yochanan himself, whether Rabbi Yochanan holds that the halach is like Stam Mishnah. So if you hold that the halach is like Stam Mishnah, our Mishnah says any place that's a Goyish town, you could assume that the ksamim are tahar. Therefore, you would be able to marry anybody from those cities. That would include even Tarmud. On the other hand, if Rabbi Yochanan, and therefore it can't be that Rabbi Yochanan holds that people from Tarmud are also to marry into them. But if Rabbi Yochanan doesn't hold that the halach is like Stam Mishnah, then it makes sense the saying from Rabbi Yochanan that you're not allowed to marry someone from Tarmud, chash, that perhaps they're mamzerim. It says in the Mishnah that if a kesem came from a room of a Jewish person or a kusi, according to everybody it's tameh, and kusim are considered geri emes, that's why they're tameh. If it came from a city of a Jewish city, then it's tar because Jews hide their ksamim. But if it's a kusi city, according to Rameir, you have to be chayshed them that they don't hide their ksamim. According to Rabbanan, you're not chayshed them. Have a wonderful day.